Shizen Biku, the Bhikshu in the fourth dhyana, by Eihei Dogen, from Shobogenzo, the treasury of the true Dharma Eye. The 14th Patriarch, the ancestral master Nagarjuna, said, "Among the Buddha's disciples, there was one bhikshu who, on attaining the fourth dhyana, became highly self-conceited and thought he had attained the fourth effect. When he first attained the first dhyana, he thought it was the state of a sakadagamin. When he attained the third dhyana, he thought it was the state of an anagamin. And when he attained the fourth dhyana, he thought it was arhathood. He thus became proud of himself and did not seek to progress further. When his life was about to end, he saw coming to him the form of a middle netherworld for one who has the fourth dhyana, and there arose in him the false view. He thought, there is no nirvana. The Buddha has deceived me. Because of this evil false view, he lost the middle netherworld for the fourth dhyana, and saw the form of a middle netherworld in a Vici Naraya. When his life ended, he was at once born in a Vici Naraya. The bhikshus asked the Buddha, when the life of this Aranya bhikshu ended, where was he born? The Buddha said, this person was born in a Vici Naraya. The bhikshus were greatly surprised. Could sitting in zazen and keeping the precepts lead to that? The Buddha answered as before and said, everything stemmed from his conceit. When he attained the fourth dhyana, he thought he had attained the fourth effect. Then when he came to the end of his life and saw the form of a middle netherworld for the fourth dhyana, there arose in him the false view. He thought, there is no nirvana. I am an arhat. Now, nonetheless, I am to be reborn. The Buddha has committed a deceit. He thereupon saw the form of a middle netherworld to a Vici Naraya, and as soon as his life ended, he was born in a Vici Naraya. Then the Buddha preached in verse, saying, even with abundant knowledge, observance of precepts, and dhyana, he had yet to attain the Dharma, by which excesses are ended. Although he possessed this virtue, this fact was hard for him to believe. That he fell into hell was because he slandered the Buddha. It was not connected with the fourth dhyana. This bhikshu is called the bhikshu in the fourth dhyana, and is also called the bhikshu of no knowledge. The story warns against mistaking attainment of the fourth dhyana for the fourth effect, and it also warns against the false view which slanders the Buddha. All in the great order of human beings and gods have known this story. From the time when the Tathagata was in the world until today, both in the western heavens and the eastern lands, in order to warn against attaching to what is wrong as if it were right. Human beings and gods say in derision, that is like attaining the fourth dhyana and thinking it is the fourth effect. The wrongs of this bhikshu, if I now briefly summarize them, are threefold. Firstly, although he is somebody of no knowledge, who cannot distinguish between the fourth dhyana and the fourth effect, he vainly departs from teachers and idly lives alone in the aranya. Happily, this is the time when the Tathagata is in the world. If this bhikshu regularly visited the place of the Buddha, so that he were constantly meeting Buddha and hearing the Dharma, the mistakes described here could never be. Instead, living alone in the aranya, he does not visit the place of the Buddha and does not meet Buddha and hear the Dharma at last, which is why he is like this. Even if he fails to visit the place of the Buddha, he should go to the orders of the great Arhats and receive their instruction. Vainly to live in solitude is a mistake born of self-conceit. Secondly, when he attains the first dhyana, he thinks it is the first effect. When he attains the second dhyana, he thinks it is the second effect. When he attains the third dhyana, he thinks it is the third effect. And when he attains the fourth dhyana, he thinks it is the fourth effect. This is his second mistake. The forms of the first, second, and third dhyanas, and the forms of the first, second, and third effects are beyond comparison. How could we draw a comparison? This mistake derives from the fault of being without knowledge, a fault which itself derives from not serving a teacher and from ignorance. Among the disciples of Upagupta, there is a bhikshu who, with devout mind, has left his family life and got the fourth dhyana, but he thinks it is the fourth effect. Upagupta, using expedient means, causes him to go to a distant place and makes a band of robbers materialize on the road thereto. He also materializes 500 merchants. The robbers attack the merchants, and there is a massacre. Seeing it, the bhikkhu becomes afraid. At once he thinks to himself, I am not an arhat. This must be the third effect. After the merchants are dead, there only remains the daughter of a wealthy merchant. She says to the bhikkhu, solely I beg you, virtuous monk, take me with you. The bhikshu replies, the Buddha does not permit me to walk with a woman. The girl says, I will follow you from a distance, virtuous monk. The bhikkhu takes pity on her. In sight of each other, they walk on. The Venerable One then materializes a big river. The woman says, virtuous monk, will you cross with me? The bhikkhu is downstream, the woman upstream. The girl suddenly falls into the water and calls, virtuous monk, save me. Then the hands of the bhikshu reach to her and rescue her. He thinks about her smoothness, and lust arises in his mind. At once he recognizes that he is not an anagamin, but feeling intense love for this woman, he leads her to a secluded place, wanting to have intercourse with her. On seeing that this is the master, he is greatly ashamed and stands with head bowed. The Venerable One says, you considered yourself to be an arhat. How could you want to do such a deed? He led the bhikshu into the sangha, made him confess, explained to him the pivot of the Dharma, and caused him to attain the state of arhat. This bhikshu initially makes the mistake of having views, but on witnessing the massacre, he becomes afraid. At that time he thinks, I am not an arhat. Still, he is mistaken in thinking that he might be in the third effect. After that, because of thinking about the woman's smoothness, he causes lust to arise in his mind, and knows that he is not an anagamin. He has no thought of slandering the Buddha, no thought of slandering the Dharma, and no thought of turning against the sacred teachings. He is not the same as the bhikshu in the fourth dhyana. This bhikshu possesses the ability of one who has learned the sacred teachings, and so he knows himself that he is not an arhat and not an anagamin. People without knowledge today neither know what arhat is, nor what Buddha is. Therefore, they do not know themselves that they are not arhats and not Buddhas. That they just randomly think and say, I am Buddha, may be a great mistake and a profound fault. Students first should learn what Buddha is. A master of the past said, therefore we know that those who learn the sacred teachings know the proper order from the beginning, and transgressions, even if they occur, are easily resolved. How true are the words of the master of the past, even if they make the mistake of having views. People who have learned even a bit of the Buddha Dharma will never be deceived by themselves and will never be deceived by others. I have heard there was a person who thought he had become a Buddha, and when the sky did not clear as expected, he thought it must be due to the hindrances of demons. The sky did clear, but after that he did not see King Brahma requesting him to preach the Dharma. He knew that he was not a Buddha. He thought that he must be an Arhat. But then, when others spoke ill of him, his mind became temperamental, and he knew that he was not an Arhat. So he thought he must be in the third effect. But then, when he saw a woman and thought lewd thoughts, he knew that he was not a sacred person. Here also, because a person honestly recognized the form of the teachings, he was able to be like this. Now, those who know the Buddha Dharma sense their own wrongness like this, and swiftly get rid of mistakes. Those who do not know idly remain for their whole lives in stupidity, and even if they receive life after life, still it will be so. This disciple of Upagupta, having attained the fourth dhyana, thinks he is in the fourth effect. But thereafter he has the wisdom that I am not an Arhat. If the bhikshu of no knowledge, on coming to the end of his life and being able to see the middle netherworld for the fourth dhyana, had the recognition, I am not an Arhat, then he could not be guilty of slandering the Buddha. Still more, it has been a long time since he attained the fourth dhyana. Why has he failed to recognize, by reflecting upon himself, that he is not in the fourth effect? If he were aware already of not being in the fourth effect, how could he fail to correct himself? Instead, he vainly sticks to his wrong consideration, hopelessly sunk in a false view. Thirdly, when his life ends, he makes an enormous mistake, the wrongness of which is so grave that he is duly fallen into a Vichy hell. Monk of no knowledge, even if you have spent your whole life thinking that the fourth dhyana is the fourth effect, if you are able, when your life is ending, to see the middle netherworld for the fourth dhyana, you should confess your lifelong mistake and consider that you were never in the fourth effect. How could you think, the Buddha has deceived me? Though nirvana does not exist, he has fabricated that nirvana exists. This is a wrongness born of no knowledge. This sin already is to have slandered the Buddha. Because of this, the middle netherworld to Avicii appears to him, and when his life ends, he falls down into Avicii hell. How could anyone, even a saint of the fourth effect, equal the Tathagata? Shariputra has long been a saint of the fourth effect. Collect all the wisdom that exists in a 3,000 great thousandfold world. See the wisdom of others, excluding the Tathagata, as one division, and compare a 16th of Shariputra's wisdom with the wisdom that remains in the 3,000 great thousandfold world. That remaining wisdom will not equal the 1/16th of Shariputra's wisdom. Nevertheless, on hearing the Tathagata preach Dharma that he has never preached before, Shariputra does not think, "This is different from the Buddha's preaching at former and latter times. The Buddha is deceiving me. He says in praise, 'Papiyas has nothing like this.' The Tathagata delivers wealth increaser. Shariputra does not deliver wealth increaser." The great difference between the fourth effect and the Buddha effect is like this. If the world in the 10 directions were full of the likes of Shariputra and the other disciples, and together they tried to fathom the Buddha's wisdom, it would be impossible. Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu have never had such virtue. Who among the students of the Buddha Dharma could fail to fathom Confucius and Lao Tzu? But no student of Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu has ever fathomed the Buddha Dharma. People today of the great kingdom of Song mostly uphold the principle of agreement between Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu and the Buddha's truth. It is the gravest of wrong views, as later I shall expand. When the bhikkhu in the fourth dhyana, seeing his own wrong view as true, considers that the Buddha has deceived him, he turns his back on the Buddha's truth forever. The enormity of his stupidness may be equal to that of the 6 teachers. A master of the past said, even when the great master was in the world, there were people of wrong consideration and views. How much worse, after the Tathagata's extinction, are those without a teacher who are unable to attain any dhyana. The present great master means the world-honored Buddha. Truly, even those who left family life and received ordination when the world-honored one was in the world had difficulty due to lack of knowledge in avoiding the mistake of wrong consideration and the holding of views. how much less could we, in a remote and inferior time and place, in the 5th 500 years after the Tathagata's extinction, be without mistakes. Even one who established the 4th dhyana was like this. How much less deserving of discussion are those who are not up to establishing the 4th dhyana, and who idly sink into greed for fame and love of gain, or those who crave official promotion or secular careers. In the great kingdom of song today, there are many ill-informed and foolish people. They say that the Buddha Dharma and the methods of Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are in accord and not divergent. In the great Sung era of Katai, there was a monk, Shoju, who edited and presented the record Fotu Roku in 30 volumes. He said, "Your subject has heard the words of Kozan Chien, that my truth is like a 3-legged cauldron, and the 3 teachings are like its legs. If one leg were missing, the cauldron would tip up." Your subject has long since admired this person and contemplated his preaching, whereupon I have recognized that the essence of what Confucianism teaches is integrity. The essence of what the Tao teaches is detachment, and the essence of what Shakyamuni teaches is seeing the nature. Integrity, detachment, and seeing the nature, different in name, same in substance. When we master the point at which they converge, there is nothing that does not concur exactly with this truth. People like this, of wrong consideration and views, are very many. They are not only Chien and Shoju. The mistake of these people is more grave than that of one who has attained the 4th dhyana and thinks it is the 4th effect. They are slandering the Buddha, slandering the Dharma, and slandering the Sangha. Already they are negating salvation, negating the 3 times, and negating cause and effect. That, in a morass of looseness, they invite misfortune and calamity is beyond doubt. They are equal to those who have thought that there are no 3 treasures, 4 truths, or 4 effects of a Shramana. The essence of the Buddha nature is never seeing the nature. Where has any of the 7 Buddhas or the 28 patriarchs of India said that the Buddha Dharma is only seeing the nature? The 6th Patriarch's Platform Sutra contains the words seeing the nature, but that text is a fake text. It is not the writing of one to whom the Dharma treasury was transmitted, and it is not the words of Soke. It is a text upon which descendants of the Buddhist patriarch absolutely never rely. Because Shoju and Chien never knew one corner of the Buddha Dharma. They produce this wrong consideration about one cauldron with 3 legs. A master of the past said, even Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu themselves never recognized the subject of attachment and the object of attachment, or the subject of detachment and the object of detachment of the small vehicle, much less actual attachment and actual detachment within the great vehicle. For this reason, they are not even slightly similar. The Buddha Dharma. Yet the stupid people of the secular world are deluded by concepts and forms, and people of indiscriminate Zen stray from the true theory. They would like to equate the concepts of the merit of the Tao and the amble with the preaching of salvation through the Buddha Dharma. But how could that be possible? Since olden times, those deluded by concepts and forms, and those who do not know the true theory, have equated the Buddha Dharma with Chuang Tzu and Lao Tzu. Of those who possess, with respect to the Buddha Dharma, even slight esteem for the ancients, not one person since olden times has attached importance to Chuang Tzu or Lao Tzu. Shoujo Hogyo Kyo says, the Bodhisattva moonlight there they call Gankai, the Bodhisattva light and purity there they call Chuji, the Bodhisattva Kasyapa there they call Lao Tzu. Since olden times, quoting the preaching of this sutra, people have said that Kung Tzu, Lao Tzu, and so on are bodhisattvas, and so their preaching may be, at heart, equal to the Buddha's preaching. And they may be, moreover, the Buddha's emissaries, whose preaching might naturally be the Buddha's preaching. These opinions are all wrong. A master of the past said, those who have referred to the catalogues of the sutras all consider this sutra to be a fake. Relying now upon this preaching, we can say that the Buddha Dharma and Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu may be ever more widely divergent. Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are bodhisattvas already. They cannot compare with the Buddha effect. Furthermore, the virtue of softening one's light and harmonizing one's traces is the Dharma only of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times. It is not an ability of common men in the world of secular dust. How can a common man, occupied in his business, be free to harmonize traces? Kung Tzu has never had any saying about harmonizing traces, still less do Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu know causes in the past or explain effects in the present. They see as the aim the art of serving a lord and managing a household through the loyalty and filial piety of merely one age. They have no preaching at all about future ages. They may be already the descendants of nihilists, those who, despising Chuang-Tzu and Lao-Tzu, have said, they know not even the small vehicle, much less the great vehicle, are the clear teachers of antiquity. Those who say that the three teachings are at one are as Chien and Shou-Ju. They are the dim-witted common men of a later degenerate age. You, Chien and Shou-Ju, what excellence do you have to disregard the preaching of the ancestral masters of antiquity, and to claim at random that the Buddha Dharma may be equal to Kung-Tzu and Lao-Tzu? Your views are never fit for discussing the penetrable and the impenetrable in the Buddha Dharma. Carrying your backpacks, you should go to learn under a clear teacher. Chien and Shou-Ju, you have never known either the great or the small vehicle. You are more ignorant than the monk who, having attained the fourth dhyana, thought it was the fourth effect. It is sad that where winds of decay are blowing, there are many demons like this. A master of the past said, according to the words of Kung-Tzu and Khitan and the writings of the 3 emperors and the 5 rulers, a household is regulated through filial piety. A nation is regulated through loyalty, and the people benefit through assistance. But this is limited within one age. It does not extend into the past or the future. It never compares with the Buddha Dharma's benefiting of the 3 times. How could such a comparison not be mistaken? How true they are, the words of the past master. They have nicely arrived at the ultimate principle of the Buddha Dharma, and they are clear with regard to the principles of secular society. The words of the 3 emperors and the 5 rulers can never equal the teachings of the sacred wheel-rolling kings, and should never be discussed alongside the preachings of King Brahma or the god Shakra. The areas Chinese emperors govern and the effects and results they attain may be far inferior, but not even the wheel kings, King Brahma and the god Shakra, equal a bhikkhu who has left family life and received ordination. How much less could they equal the Tathagata? The writings of Kung-Tzu and Khitan, moreover, cannot equal the 18 great scriptures of India, and they do not bear comparison with the 4 books of the Vedas. The Brahmanist teaching of the Western heavens is never equal to the Buddha's teaching, nor even equal to the teachings of Shravakas of the small vehicle. It is pitiful that in the minor and remote nation of China there is the false doctrine that the three teachings are at one. The 14th Patriarch, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, said, "The great Arhats and Pratyeka Buddhas know 80,000 great kalpas. The great Bodhisattvas and Buddhas know countless kalpas. The likes of Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu never know past and future within one generation. How could they have the power to know one past life or two past lives? How much less could they know one kalpa? How much less could they know 100 kalpas or 1,000 kalpas? And how much less could they know countless kalpas? Compared with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who illuminate and know these countless kalpas more clearly than one looking at the palm of a hand, the likes of Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu do not even deserve to be called dim. Covering the ears, do not listen to the words that the three teachings are at one. It is the wrongest doctrine among wrong doctrines. Chuang Tzu says, "Nobility and lowliness, suffering and joy, right and wrong, gain and loss, all these are just the natural state." This view already is the descendant of non-Buddhists of the naturalistic view in the Western kingdom. Nobility and lowliness, suffering and joy, right and wrong, gain and loss, are all the effect of good or bad conduct. Because Chuang Tzu neither knows fulfilling karma and pulling karma, nor understands the past and the future, he is ignorant of the present. How could he be equal to the Buddha Dharma? Some say the Buddha Tathagatas widely substantiate the worlds of Dharma. Therefore Dharma worlds of atoms are all substantiated by the Buddhas. That being so, both forms of karmic result, circumstances and the subject, amount to the preaching of the Tathagata, and therefore mountains, rivers and the earth, the sun, the moon and the stars, the four illusions and the three poisons, all are what the Tathagata preached. To see the mountains and rivers is to see the Tathagata. The three poisons and the four illusions are nothing other than the Buddha Dharma. To see atoms is the same as seeing the world of Dharma, and every instant is the state of Sambodhi. This is called the Great Liberation. This is called the directly transmitted and immediately accessible truth of the patriarchs. Fellows who speak like this are as common as rice, flax, bamboo, and reeds. The government and the people are full of them. It is not clear, however, whose descendants these fellows are, and they do not know the truth of the Buddhist patriarchs at all. While mountain rivers and the earth may be what the Buddhas preach, it is not impossible for mountains, rivers, and the earth momentarily to be what the common man sees. Those fellows do not learn and do not hear the principle of what constitutes the preaching of Buddhas. For them to say that seeing atoms is the same as seeing the world of Dharma is like subjects saying that they are the same as a king. Moreover, why do they not say that seeing the world of Dharma is the same as seeing atoms? If the view of these fellows could be esteemed as the great truth of the Buddhist patriarchs, the Buddha need not have appeared in the world. The ancestral master need not have manifested himself, and living beings would not be able to attain the truth. Even if those fellows physically realize that appearance is just non-appearance, the truth is beyond this principle. Paramartha Sanzo said, "In China there are two blessings. The first is that there are no Rakshasas. The second is that there are no non-Buddhists." These words were in fact imported by a non-Buddhist Brahmin from the Western Kingdom. Even if there is no one able to penetrate non-Buddhism, that does not mean there cannot be people who beget non-Buddhist views. Rakshasas have never been seen, but that does not mean there are no descendants of non-Buddhists. The reason China is a minor nation in a remote land, and therefore not the same as India, the center, is that although the Chinese have learned the Buddha Dharma a little, there is no one who has grasped the state of experience as it was grasped in India. A master of the past said, "Today there are many who have returned to secular society, afraid of having to perform king's service. They enter into non-Buddhism, but steal the principles of the Buddha Dharma in order secretly to understand Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu. They duly create confusion, deluding beginners about which is true and which is false, calling this the view that is able to unfold the Dharma of the Vedas. Remember, those who cause confusion, not knowing which is true and which is false, between the Buddha Dharma and Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu, and those who delude beginners, are just the present Chien and Shujo and their like. Not only is it the grossest stupidity, it is the utmost lack of esteem for the ancients. This is obvious and is evident. Among the monks of the Song dynasty in recent days, there had not been even one who knew that Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are inferior to the Buddha Dharma. Although people who had become descendants of the Buddhist patriarch like rice, flax, and bamboo, and reeds, filled the mountains and fields of the 9 states. There was not one person, or half a person, upon whom it had dawned that beyond Kongzu and Lao-Tzu, the Buddha Dharma is outstanding in its excellence. Only my late master Tendo, the eternal Buddha, clearly understood that the Buddha Dharma and Kongzu and Lao-Tzu are not one. He instituted this teaching day and night. Though others were famous as teachers of sutras and commentaries or as lecturers, it had not dawned on any of them that the Buddha Dharma far surpasses the areas of Kongzu and Lao-Tzu. For the last 100 years or so, many lecturers have studied the conventions of people who practice Zazen and learn the state of truth, hoping to steal their understanding. We can say that they are utterly mistaken. In the writings of Kongzu, there is the person of innate intelligence. In the Buddha's teaching, there are no people of innate intelligence. In the Buddha Dharma, there is explanation of the Sarira. Kongzu and Lao-Tzu do not know of the existence or non-existence of the Sarira. Even if they intend to make the 3 teachings into one and mix them up, penetration or non-penetration of a detailed explanation will be beyond them at last. Rongo says, "Those who know it from birth are the best. Those who know it from study are next. Those who learn it with difficulty are after that. Those who fail to learn, even with difficulty, the people will see as the lowest." If this says there is inborn intelligence, it is guilty of negating causality. In the Buddha Dharma, there is no doctrine that negates causality. When the bhikkhu in the 4th dhyana comes to the end of his life, he falls into the sin of slandering the Buddha momentarily. If students think that the Buddha Dharma is equal to the teachings of Kongzu and Lao-Tzu, their sin to slander the Buddha through a lifetime must be grave indeed. Students should swiftly throw away the opinion that falsely considers the Buddha Dharma and Kongzu and Lao-Tzu to be at one. Those who harbour this view and fail to discard it will eventually fall into an evil state. Students, you must clearly remember, Kongzu and Lao-Tzu neither know the Dharma in the 3 times, nor know the truth of cause and effect. They do not know the peaceful establishment of one continent. How much less could they know the peaceful establishment of the 4 continents? They do not even know about the 6 heavens. How much less could they know the Dharma of the triple world of 9 realms? They do not know a small 1,000-fold world, and they are not able to know a middle 1,000-fold world. How could they see, and how could they know the 3,000 great 1,000-fold world? Even in the solitary realm of China, Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are only minor retainers who have not ascended to the rank of emperor. They cannot be compared with the Tathagata, who is the king of the 3,000 great 1,000-fold world. In the Tathagata's case, Brahmadeva, the god Shakra, and sacred wheel-rolling kings, day and night, are venerating him and standing guard over him, and perpetually requesting him to preach the Dharma. Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are without such merit. They are only common men, wandering in the mundane circuit. They have never known the truth of transcendence and salvation. How could they perfectly realize, in the manner of the Tathagata, that all dharmas are real form? If they have never perfectly realized this, how could they be seen as equal to the world-honored one? Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are without inner virtue and without outer usefulness. They can never arrive at the level of the world-honored one. How could we disgorge the false doctrine that the 3 teachings are at one? Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu cannot penetrate the existence of boundaries and the non-existence of boundaries of the world. Not only do they fail to see and fail to know the wide, and fail to see and fail to know the great, they also fail to see the smallest material forms, and fail to know the length of a kasana. The world-honored one clearly sees the smallest material forms and knows the length of a kasana. How could we liken him to Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu? Kung, Lao, and Chung Tzu, and Hui Tzu, and such like, are just common men. They could not reach the level of even a Shrotapanna, of the small vehicle. How much less could they reach the level of the 2nd effect, or the 3rd effect, or an arhat of the 4th effect? That students, however, out of ignorance, put them on a par with the Buddhas, is in the midst of delusion, deepening delusion. Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are not only ignorant of the 3 times, and ignorant of the many kalpas, they are not able to know 1 instant of mindfulness, and not able to know 1 moment of the mind. They do not bear comparison, even with the gods of the sun and the moon, and they cannot equal the 4 great kings and the hosts of gods. Whether in the secular sphere or beyond the secular sphere, seen in comparison with the world-honored one, they are straying in delusion. The biographies say, Qi was a great man of the Zhou dynasty. He was skilled in astrology and once saw a celestial anomaly. Following it eastward, he met, as he had expected, Lao Tzu, whom he asked to write a book of 5,000 words. Qi wished to go forth so that he could follow Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu said, "If you are determined to go forth, bring the heads of 7 people, including your father and mother, and then you will be able to go forth." Qi immediately did as he had been told, whereupon the 7 heads all turned into the heads of pigs. A master of the past said, in contrast, Confucianists who are versed in secular scriptures and dutiful to their parents honor even their parents' wooden images. But when Lao Tzu established his instruction, he made Qi kill his parents. In the lineage of the Tathagata's teaching, great benevolence is the foundation. How could Lao Tzu make a deadly sin the starting point of his instruction? In the past, there were wrong groups who compared Lao Tzu with the world-honored one. And today there are stupid fellows who say that both Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu compare with the world-honored one. How could we not pity them? Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu cannot equal even the sacred wheel-rolling kings who, through the 10 kinds of good, govern the secular world. How could the 3 emperors and the 5 rulers be equal to the wheel-rolling kings of the gold, silver, copper, and iron wheels, who are furnished with the 7 treasures and 1,000 things, and who either govern 4 continents or rule a 3,000-fold world? Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu can never be compared with even these 3 emperors and 5 rulers. The Buddhas and the patriarchs of the past, present, and future have each considered the starting point of instruction to be dutiful obedience to parents, teacher monks, and the 3 treasures, and service of offerings to sick people, and so on. They have never, since time immemorial, considered harming one's parents to be the starting point of instruction. So Lao Tzu and the Buddha Dharma are not one. To kill one's father and mother, in every case, is karma felt in the next life, in which falling into niraya is assured. For all Lao Tzu's random discussion of the void, those who harm their father and mother will not escape the arising of retribution. Dento Roku says, the second patriarch constantly lamented, saying, the teachings of Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are only the art of decorum and criteria for behavior, and the writings of Chuang Tzu and the I Ching are imperfect in regard to exquisite truths. Recently, I have heard that the great man Bodhidharma is residing at Shaolin. A consummate human being may not be far away. Under him I shall mould the profound state. People today should definitely believe that the authentic transmission into China of the Buddha Dharma was solely due to the second patriarch's power of learning in practice. Though the first patriarch had come from the West, without the second patriarch, the Buddha Dharma would not have been transmitted. If the second patriarch had not transmitted the Buddha Dharma in the eastern lands today, there would be no Buddha Dharma. In general, the second patriarch must not be grouped among others. Dento Roku says, the monk Shinko was a man of broad accomplishments. For a long time he lived in Iraku. He was widely read in many texts and was well able to discuss profound truths. The second patriarch's wide reading of many texts in former days may be far beyond the reading of a few volumes by people today. After he attained the Dharma and received the transmission of the robe, he had no words to the effect that, in former days, when I thought the teachings of Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu were only the art of decorum and criteria for behavior, that was a mistake. Remember, the second patriarch had clearly realized that Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu are unable to equal the Buddha Dharma. Why do his distant descendants today turn their backs on their ancestral father and say that Kung Tzu and Lao Tzu and the Buddha Dharma are at one? Just know that it is a false doctrine. Among distant descendants of the second patriarch, who could rely upon the explanations of Shoju and the like? If you want to be a descendant of the second patriarch, never say that the three teachings are at one.